second. We actually have a module that's available on our Kentucky Works website that allows you to actually plug in. If my son or daughter was making this amount of money, or if I was making this amount of money, how would that affect my benefits? And so it allows you to actually calculate that. And let's see the next slide.
Harold, I just want to jump in and say, though, that was so helpful for me. So Andy was turning 18 and working at the same time as Harold completed the development of that module. And it was so helpful for me as a parent to go through and work through the math and to really understand it. So I think that is such a useful tool if you can go online and use it.
Yeah, and it's a www.KentuckyWorks, all one word, .org. Okay, now, and this is a quick fact sheet on SSI, and I need to stand up to be able to see it, and I apologize for that. But essentially, this is the new 2019 SSI amounts. Individuals are eligible to receive up to $771 per month, individuals who have significant disabilities. If you work, you say, well, okay, well, can I work and retain my SSI? Well, if you work, the first $85 of income does not count against your SSI at all. And then for every dollar you earn, your SSI is reduced 50 cents. But if you think about that, for every dollar you earn, your SSI is reduced by 50 cents, you are always better off working. You say, well, wait a second, but my health care is also really important, okay? And by the time you hit $1,627 per month, you're not receiving SSI anymore but that's still more than the 771 you were receiving. You say, yeah, that's great, I'm making more money, but now what about my health care? Well, the rule on the health care is this, is that where is it? Okay. If you reach that amount, that $1,627 per month, in terms of income, yes, you won't be receiving the SSI, but you continue to receive the Medicaid health care through Medicaid up until the Kentucky's current threshold, which is $30,314 a year. Okay, so even if you make so much money that you lose your SSI, you continue to receive health care up to $30,314 a year. And if you make that much money, typically your employer has a health care plan that you can participate in. Yes, Walt?
There's a participant online, Carolyn Wheeler.
Yes.
Carolyn Wheeler says,
oh no, I will not take any questions from Carolyn Wheeler.
We love you, Carol. There is also the student earned income exclusion while students are in school, where there would be no reduction in their benefits.
Yeah, if you're working while you're in school, in high school or in college, and finish that up, I believe it is up to what, $1,780 a month. Is that correct, Carolyn?
Carolyn says $1,870 a month.
All right, well, see, I'm using last year's and she's using this year's. Okay, but yeah, if you're a student, either in high school or in college, you can be working and there's no deduction, and Carolyn has the actual amounts. That's the student exclusion rule for SSI. Okay, now what else is she saying to us?
Carolyn says it's up to age 22.
Up to age 22 for high school or in college, up to 22. Thank you. Okay, and so that's that's a really important thing. But what it comes down to, if SSI is your only cash benefit, you will always have more money to spend by working.
That's right.
And parents fear this loss of benefits, and of course you have to keep the Social Security Administration informed of what's happening and all of that. And if your son or daughter is in school, or when they start working, but it is not true that working will result in a loss of benefits if you're receiving SSI. Your benefits may be reduced but you're always, always better off working.
That's right.
Okay, now what's our last slide? All right, now some people also receive SSI or SSDI, Social Security, disability income, and all that insurance. And the thing is some of those rules get a little complex. That's why we have, and if you're a parent or you're an individual with disability yourself, and you're interested in and you want to see exactly what the impact would be in your own case, you can call the Work Incentives Planning and Assistance, or WIPA Service Agencies Kentucky. If you live in the western part of the state, Franklin County west, it's in Louisville, and if serving Fayette County and east, it's Goodwill Services has the WIPA, and those are the telephone numbers. If your son or daughter has a VR counselor, or if you're an individual and you have a VR counselor, you can ask the VR counselor for a referral to the Office of Vocational Rehabilitation, their benefits counselor, and you can get an analysis in terms of your own specific situation. And then finally, folks need to know that when your son or daughter approaches the age of 18, your student, upon turning 18, will, if they received SSI as a child, there'll be a redetermination of their SSI eligibility under the adult eligibility guidelines. And some people say, well, if my son or daughter doesn't go to work, that won't make any difference, right? No. This redetermination will occur regardless of whether or not your son or daughter goes to work, okay? But the good news is that working you're almost always better off working. And if there's any question, there are benefits counselors who can assist with that. And families' fears here, while we can certainly are understandable, there are answers to these. Okay, yes, sir.
Carolyn Wheeler.
Who let this Carolyn Wheeler on this seminar anyway?
We love Carolyn.
We love
Carolyn Wheeler says students are a priority for WIPA service providers, and their services are free.
There you go.
Yes, thank you. Yes, WIPA services are free. And obviously, if you're receiving services from the Office of Vocational Rehabilitation, the OVR benefits counselor is also free. But the point of the matter is, this fear, if this is the fear that you have for your son or daughter, or fear you have for yourself, there are some very, very good answers for you in terms of the impact of wages upon benefits. Okay.
And I think Dr. Kleinert, it's important to also share that if we have people online who are from other states, that every state has WIPA representatives. So I actually live in Georgia, and when Andy started to work, I called and we were applying for SSI.
Yeah.
We called and we were able to get that free counseling, and that representative was actually the one who reinforced to us, yes, there is a student earned income exclusion, because at that time they were reducing his SSI based on his work, and so we had to contact the Social Security Administration. And with that kind of reinforcement from the WIPA counselor, we're able to say, oh no, don't you need to reimburse him those funds, because he's a student and shouldn't have that be coming out of his.
Yeah, the student exclusion rule, the reduction of 50 cents of your SSI for every dollar you make, that is consistent across states, okay? And also the keeping of your medical card, your health insurance, after you reach the the earnings threshold, is consistent across states. The only difference is the Medicaid threshold may vary a little bit from state to state. It's 30,300 in Kentucky. It may be slightly higher, it may be slightly lower, but it's in that ballpark for every single state. So regardless of where you live, if you live in this country, these statements are true.
Great. Oh, got a question.
Stephanie Lynch says you can check with your job coaches and those in charge of work-based learning for a letter for SSI to reinforce this while in high school.
That's
Great.
very
Yeah,
helpful to know.
that is excellent. Thank you, Stephanie. That's absolutely true. And also, I would like to thank Carol Wheeler, because Carol Wheeler is probably the most knowledgeable person
Yes.
in the state of Kentucky in this area. So, yes.
Carolyn Wheeler also says she gave a website, choose work, one word, choosework.ssa.gov website can take people to their WIPA provider.
Oh,
Okay,
love
can you
it.
say that again?
Choose work, that's one word, choosework.ssa.gov.
Okay.
And-
Choose work, one word, .ssa.gov.
.gov.
And if you go on the Kentucky Works website, we actually have a blog attached to it where because I am fortunate enough to work with Carolyn Wheeler, I was able to ask her all the questions that someone going into an SSI meeting might have, including a lot of those things. And she gave me all of those website links, and we have the links on there. So if you go to the KentuckyWorks.org website and go to the blog, you can listen to we have a series of 4 or 5 recorded interviews on common going into your SSI meeting questions.
And we're going to follow up after this webinar tonight with the PowerPoint, which has links in it, and then we'll also include all those other
links and also we've got a compilation of all the resources you're about to cover on this handout, and we will send you the digital version so you can have the live links.
Carolyn Wheeler says she's not the most knowledgeable person in the state. She says Lucy Miller is.
Okay, well.
Maybe.
Well, we love you, Carolyn. Well, we're going to talk just a few more minutes just about some resources that we have, and it's going to be Kentucky kind of specific, but as Stephanie said, you can always look things up in your state too. But on this next slide, I think we've kind of got a little bit of what they are. We've talked about most of them tonight. Of course, we've talked about the Kentucky Office of Vocational Rehabilitation. There is a school transition team and special education cooperatives throughout the state. Clayton and I have talked tonight about transition fairs. Those are put on by our special education cooperatives. So if you have a student with an intellectual developmental disability in the school system that's either a junior or a senior, sometimes I think they might go as sophomores, they have probably attended a transition fair sponsored by the special education cooperatives. You just may not even know that they've attended those. Those are great because at those transition fairs, they have some breakout sessions and they talk to them about going to work. They talk to them about college. They talk to them about all kinds of different things, but then they also have resources available. My agency, Kentucky Spin, we always go to those transition fairs and provide resources for families. You all actually have a packet who are in the house tonight of resources from Kentucky Spin regarding transition that I think will be some really good resources for you all to have on transition, a lot more than what we've went into tonight. That'll help you. And please, I have extra copies if you want to take an extra one and share it. We can also add some links at the end when we send that follow-up email to you all, so you all will know. Also, there is the Center for Accessible Living here that provides also one-on-one training with folks. Also, they have wonderful life skills classes that they provide available. I know there's one in Louisville. I'm not sure where. I think there's one in Bowling Green, Center for Accessible Living.
And there's the Independence Place in Lexington.
Yes.
is a center for independent living, and that is on Nicholasville Road. Very close to, right behind Trader Joe's.
There you go. There you go.
58 Nicholasville Road.
Okay,
Wow, you knew that. So lots of great resources, and that will provide you with these links that I believe will really help you. And you may think, well, I don't need all of that now, but it's going to be so nice just to have them all, where when you do decide that you need them, you'll have them available for you.
Another cool thing to point out is on the Kentucky Works website, we have a survey where you can answer specific questions about your situation, and it will give you, it will pop up the resources
Yeah.
that you need
Yeah.
based on your answers to the questions.
Love it. I
So
think
that's pretty
Kentucky,
cool,
I think
too.
that website is, Kentucky Works website is one of the best websites out there too. We've got there's so many great things on there. I think Stephanie, you did that, didn't you?
I did.
Yeah,
So,
she
you
did
know,
that website. So go on, and the modules are wonderful. We've actually done a lot of the modules ourselves personally. So I encourage you to look on there.
Well, and I do have to say that being a parent, part of my motivation with the parent survey was I got so overwhelmed by all the, I'd go to these websites and I'd have all this great stuff and be like, but what applies to me right now?
Right.
So that's why we created the survey so that people can answer questions and get a customized list of resources.
And one of the main reasons why I'm in the field that I am, believe it or not, I wanted to be a cosmetologist in my younger years. I could be doing your hair tonight, but I'm not. I'm here talking to you like this. Was because when Clayton was diagnosed with a disability, I reached out, I felt like, to so many people and could not find resources. I could not find where to go. And I don't know if anyone else has felt that way, but it was very frustrating to me that I knew, it was like that all this stuff was out there, but I didn't know where to go. So it became my mission, and my goal is to find out everything I could to help other families. And so that's what I've spent the majority of my 22 years since he was born, is doing that, and having a place where you can find all of these wonderful resources is great. So hopefully the information that we send out to you all will be wonderful, that you'll have those clickable links that you can go to and find that information, because Kentucky has wonderful resources. It's just sometimes hard for families to know how to navigate those and find out where to go. So that's what we do at Kentucky Spend to help that. We've got Kentucky Works website to provide that. Human Development Institute has wonderful links in a resource directory that's available to families. So the information is out there. It's just sometimes hard to navigate it. So hopefully we'll be able to provide some of those resources to help you all along the way.
If your son or daughter has already graduated, or if you've already graduated from or left high school, the Office for Vocational Rehabilitation is a tremendous resource. And there is a toll-free number, and you probably have it in here someplace. And they have offices all over the state. And then if you live in this area in Central Kentucky, Independence Place,
Yes.
which is Center for Independent Living, on Nicholasville Road, is also a very good a very good resource to start with. So I would suggest those two if your son or daughter has just completed high school.
Absolutely.
Well, and if you're looking for mentors, like you're saying, I think sometimes when you have those questions, you just need a live person to answer questions. And that's what I love about what Kentucky Spend does, is they're divided into regions, and you can ask other family members who are experts questions. And then there are also other great parent advocacy groups here in Kentucky. I know, I'm tied in with the Down syndrome organizations because I have a child with that condition, but a lot of them have some really great employment resources as well. Down Syndrome Association of Central Kentucky here and Down Syndrome Louisville have a lot, but there are a number of parent advocacy organizations that you can turn to.
I think the best thing is just to stay connected and just find what works for you and your family, and just keep connected and reach out, and then also to share that information when you find it. When you find information out, share it with others, because it's always great to have help from other folks too that have been there and been in the same situation. So it's great.
And I think if any of you haven't gone through it yet, there's a pamphlet called Charting the Life course, and it is one of the best resources. It's a national resource that's just amazing to go through and do a lot of these exercises of figuring out what the skills and talents are, figuring out possible job ideas, and also having them answer their own questions about it. And if you're interested at all in post-secondary education and college programs like Megan's done, go to thinkcollege.net. They have a list of, or a directory of the over 250 college programs available to people.
Very good.
And then, of course, check out our Transition 101 module that's free for you to use. So kind of just wrapping it up, and I want to make sure we can address any questions that come up. What we ultimately want everyone to be able to do following this presentation is just to come up with 3 action steps that you can take toward preparing for employment. And these don't have to be anything monumental or overwhelming, but just think about where you're at in life right now. So if you have a younger child, it might be just to teach your child to put their laundry away by putting labels in the drawers. Make an IEP goal to do proper greetings, and maybe to sign, if he's interested in karate, sign him up for a community class, right? I know in our case, we enrolled in a martial arts class that was offered for free through a church. For an older child, it might be to make an IEP transition goal about, she's interested in art, like Connor we talked about earlier. Might be creating a personal website to show their art as part of their IEP goal, because they can work on that at school. It might be to apply for a post-secondary camp. They had a great camp this summer at UK that was available to high school juniors and seniors to get acquainted with the college experience. And it might also be to teach her to use a washing machine, and to develop some of those independent living goals. So that's what we hope all of you can do coming away from tonight, is just to come up with some solid, actionable goals to move toward employment and just to move that meter a little further down the road. And so I thank you all for coming tonight and for joining with us. I want to make sure we answer any last final questions. Thank you.
No questions?
Any online questions? Any
Not
questions
right
in
now.
the room?
Anybody else have any questions? All right. Great. Good.
I guess I just kind of personally, I'll throw this out there. I am not super mom. Clearly, my kid took off on his bike, and I didn't know. So it was kind of luck of the draw there that happened. I mean, there was a lot of skill building along the way. But I'm just saying, I think sometimes when we see where a kid is at, we think, oh gosh, it sounds hard to get there.
Right.
But it's just a matter of kind of, I think, assessing where we're at the moment and what steps we can take to move just a little further down the road. And honestly, that's kind of what tonight was for us. This is Andy's only second time doing public speaking. And so, there are some things we have to work through. As a mom, I have to resist the urge to kind of control the situation, and I don't do such a great job at it.
Me neither.
I think, we're all trying, and we're
Right.
trying to move in that direction. And I'm really proud of all of our panelists
Yes.
tonight for
They
sharing
did
their stories. So thank you.
Wonderful.
We do have a question from an online participant. Amanda says, what was the website Stephanie mentioned to find strengths and talents?
To find
Life course.
yeah.
Mhm.
Let me go up to that.
I think it's right.
It's
here.
charting the life course.
And they have some
And we
wonderful tools on there that
Oh,
you can
so many.
participate as an individual, as a family. It's really, really great.
And we'll send out the links for
Mhm.
that with our handout, because we have everybody's email addresses, right? Okay, so we'll send that out, but be looking for charting the life course as that tool.
One of the little things that we say at our house is we call it Groundhog Day every day. So if don't think that just because they're not getting the skill that you think they should right away, just keep doing it over and over and over, just like Groundhog Day. That's what we do at our house.
Yeah.
Carolyn Wheeler has the website, and the website is lifecoursetools.com.
There we go, lifecoursetools.com. It's amazing. I've loved
Yes.
it.
And you can download them all and save them and print them. It's wonderful.
I have a question.
Yes.
So, what advice would you give? My son has a severe language impairment. I mean, he's got a lot of skills, but it's hard to recognize them because of his language impairment. And I'm looking over some of your things here, and they talk about work readiness and the skills that somebody needs to have that. What advice would you have? I mean, it gives a lot of advice in here of how to get them ready, but I'm not sure he's going to be there anytime soon.
And how old is he?
16.
16. Well, as you can tell, I mean, Andy still kind of, that speech is kind of an issue that we still work on.
Could you repeat the question for the?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
That's online, please.
So the question was, how do you help a student who has some more limited verbal skills to work through that and still develop those talents? And I think, I think it's again kind of figuring out what those strengths are. And I know that Jane Kleinert, Harold,
Yes.
doesn't she have some resources for people with limited verbal skills?
Trying to think. How old is you? Did you say you're
16.
16? She is processing. Verbal processing?
He mostly understands what you say, but he can't put together sentences himself.
One of the little resource, this little thing would be great too for him, that you help him create, and it could be his tool also when he goes and, presents himself. That would be really good because it's explaining, his strengths on here too, instead of him having to always say it.
And what does he like to do?
Build Legos.
He likes to build Legos.
Yeah. He's really good at it. He can build
Uh-huh.
really, really complex Lego sets. He likes to follow the instructions. He'll sit down with the instructions and follow it. Spend 8 hours and build this huge Lego set.
Then exactly like you were saying earlier, taking those strengths and building them into an
Yes.
employable,
Yeah, so
like what, I can't remember the exact example,
so
but it was.
you go from a strength to figuring out a work skill, right?
Mhm.
So it might be that someone with, I'm trying to think, and this is something that really Voc Rehab and a job coach is good at helping to work through, but thinking about what kind of job would require the work skills that would lend themselves to that strength, right?
Mhm.
So that you can move to that piece. Because it could be, I'm
Exactly.
trying to think of something
I
else.
love like with the popcorn situation where he talked about how he stays on task, and how he's very repetitive. And so that was able to put that into an employable situation where he was able to sit and fill those bags of popcorn. That would be a great example of, he's very good at building things. So how can you take that and make it into something that could be incorporate something into his IEP right now at school that could be a transition goal for him for later.
And I would think a job that required some kind of assembling would be a great kind of first step if that's what he enjoys doing. And then you can move then into some more creative outlets for that. And I think it's also important to know that it's okay to start in a certain place. Because we're starting, most kids start in a grocery store or in a restaurant as a server. And you had
Stephanie Lynch, I think, has a suggestion online.
Fantastic.
Stephanie says, I would embed goals into his IEP and focus on strengths and communication.
Yes, that's exactly what I was saying, which is really important. But look at those goals and make sure that they really have to do with his strengths, okay? Because you can have a goal on an IEP and, but make sure it's something that goes along with that strength there.
Well, and this is another thing you can do that I know Andy's teachers have done is like give them the exercise of working with the teacher and we built this in as a transition goal to find careers that are where assembly or building would be part of it and that wouldn't require as many verbal skills. Mm-hmm. And we all have different strengths. Like honestly, if you gave me a job where I had to rely on anything more than budgeting math, it would be a bad scenario. So there are certain jobs you kind of avoid based on what are not your strengths,
right? And
you capitalize on the strengths that you do have.
And all students are required to do the individual learning plan at school. I don't know if if you know about that. A lot of times they do just what's required, but that is like a wealth of information in there. And as a matter of fact, for my son who did not have a disability, we used it for scholarship information because you can go in and put all your strengths in there and it will pop out jobs that are in that field. So I would try to get some more information about the individual learning plan and ask to have access to his at school.
Well, and that was one of his transition goals as far as I was saying with the Like they had to explore different careers in photography and identify which ones he thought were the most interesting. Yes.
Carolyn Wheeler has a suggestion.
I will take any suggestion from Carolyn. Wheeler.
She says Joe Steppe, who has the popcorn business, does not speak.
Yeah.
He's an augmented communication device.
There you go. See? So it can happen. It's
Yeah.
just, it's almost like thinking out of the box and really just throw away the box.
It's creativity, right?
Yeah.
Like,
And you guys talked about the Office of Vocational Rehab. We had his IEP meeting recently, and they just referred us to him. They just gave us a card and said, "Here, contact these people." Is that appropriate? Is that what should have happened, or
They should
the school- are
invite
they supposed
them to the meeting.
Yeah, they did.
Should be invited to.
Did you had a meeting with the Office of Voc Rehab or?
No, we had his ARC. We did the ARC,
Oh,
and they didn't invite him to the meeting. They just handed us their card at the meeting and said, "You should contact these people."
well, and I'll tell. So WIOA had just kind of extended the coverage to the younger ages when Andy had his IEP meeting, and I had requested it at that time. I said, "Oh, I want Voc Rehab to come," and they were like, "Oh, it doesn't apply yet." And it was just because I'm in the field that I knew, and so I did end up contacting them separately, and it was a productive conversation. But then the next year they did come to the IEP meeting,
So
and,
go
and
ahead
then the
and make the
teacher was
call.
on board. So it won't hurt anything to go ahead and call yourself. But you can also tell the school that you want to have the IEP meeting where Voc Rehab's there, because they can provide some of those
Yeah.
devices and services that you might need. Like for us, a lot of it was learning. We had to learn timing, like how to time breaks. And Voc Rehab can do that, like with providing timing type devices. They can also provide the job coach. So there are lots of resources you can access through them that you might not be able
Yeah.
to get through the school.
yeah, and here's a toll-free number for Voc Rehab. It is 1-800 372 7172. 1-800-372-7172. And yeah, and typically, I was a high school teacher, and we typically got Voc Rehab there ourselves. But yeah, Stephanie's right. Yeah, but Voc Rehab also serves young adults who have completed school as well, and their job, and essentially their role, if you meet their what they call their order selection or their guidelines, their job, if you have a significant barrier, physical or intellectual barrier, a learning barrier to employment, and you have a reasonable shot of success if they provide services, you are eligible for VR services. And as Stephanie's pointed out, the recent reauthorization of the Vocational Rehabilitation Act, Workforce Innovation and Opportunities Act, actually now brings down services to the age of 14. However, it's getting into the schools. Some schools are moving a little faster than other schools. But yes, that's.
And a lot of the special ed co-ops
Yeah.
are providing those pre-employment services at those transition fairs that I've spoke about.
Yeah.
And parents are more than welcome to attend those transition fairs. It's just a lot of times they don't know about them or it's not convenient.
They did it this year.
I'm missing
Yeah,
yours
exactly.
tonight to be with you
Yeah.
because I love you.
Okay. Yes, Walt Bauer. What does Carolyn Wheeler want to say now?
This is a comment from Stephanie Lynch.
Okay.
Stephanie and Carolyn.
She says, I was very lucky to be a student in Dr. Kleinert's class at UK 25 years ago.
Ah.
One of my favorite classes.
Wow, that's awfully nice of her.
Did you pay her for that?
No,
Are
but
you sure?
that was when I saw her brain left.
I love
Thank
it.
you guys so much.
Yes, thank you. It's been wonderful. You can say tell everybody good night. Yep.
Thank you, everybody that came.
Good night.
If you attended online, there's a survey they'll pop up. Right, Dr. Bauer? Okay, and so fill that out. And then we also have a survey for here, just a real quick survey as to whether or not it was of value to you. And we'll stick around. If you have any questions you want to ask us directly, we're here for a few, we can stay for a few minutes.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And
Are you talking about this?
Yes. And because we know that we were competing with the University of Kentucky basketball
Oh.
game.
Guess what? 58-31, Kentucky on top.
Shocker.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
I love DJ Wilson.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm glad that somebody was watching the score. Thank you all very much for thank you all very much for coming out.
Thank you.
thank you. See, these are all faithful Kentucky